Hello friends, this is Hedda. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to my April plan with me. This video is a little bit late because, as you might be able to hear, I am a little bit sick. So it's taken me a little while to both film and edit this video, but here we are, and I'm really excited to share this setup with you because I love the theme. You can see here the printables and also the physical stickers that I made for my patrons during March for this April theme. The theme is cherry blossoms and frogs and all the beautiful green and pink tones, and I'm absolutely in love with this theme. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you'll know that it is a tradition to do a cherry blossom theme in April, and that is by no means unique to me. A lot of people do this, but sometimes I wonder, like, what kind of cherry blossom theme should I do next time? Because at some point, am I gonna run out of color combinations or ideas? I don't know. For now, this is a really fun theme. I haven't done frogs since I think September 2022, so it has been quite some time. I consider this setup a true crafty setup because I decided to do a lot of drawing instead of just doing collaging like I've been doing for the past few months, and I'm also doing waterfall tabs, I guess is what they're called. So it's kind of like Dutch doors, but not really, because the different tabs that you cut out, they kind of just create this waterfall effect. And one thing that's really fun to do with waterfall tabs is to have washi tape decorate the edges. And I decided that instead of doing lots of different washi tapes, which can get a little bit busy, I think, I decided to just use two different ones. One that is green with a flower pattern, and then a cherry blossom kind of border washi tape. And this cherry blossom washi tape was in the Sakura Friends mystery box from Notebook Therapy that went for sale, I think, at the end of February or early March. I'm pretty sure it's sold out, but this washi tape was part of it and it's beautiful. I've been using it a lot actually. And the green floral pattern washi tape actually has some glitter in it and it's really pretty. I don't know where it's from or who designed it because I was actually sent this washi tape by one of the manufacturers that I'm working with for my online shop, and it was kind of just them showing me what kind of washi tapes they could do, and this was one of the samples. And usually they will just pick and choose some designs that they have done or like manufactured for other artists and other shops and whatnot, and then just send those as samples. So it most definitely exists out there somewhere, but I don't know where you can find it, unfortunately. It's really cute though, I really like it. It was a little bit tricky getting the waterfall tabs right. Like, my notebook has a grid that is smaller than 5mm, so a washi tape is usually, I mean, the green washi tape is like a standard size washi tape, and it's 15mm tall, wide. So that will usually cover 3 squares perfectly. But because my notebook has a smaller grid, it's from Lila Journals, I love it, the small grid is perfect for me, but because of that it was a little bit trickier to kind of measure where the different pages should be cut, and that's why I'm placing the last strips, like the ones in the back, first, and then cutting out and then just going one page at a time and making sure that they're kind of lining up in the way that I would like them to line up. I did have to like remove one strip of washi tape and place it again, as you saw earlier, and kind of cut off a little bit more. Another thing that I did that I think worked to my advantage is that I left a slight white border at the edge, so I didn't cut the page flush with the washi tape, and so this way there is a little bit of a white edge on each page, which separates the designs a little bit more so that it doesn't feel too busy or that it's just like mushed together. So I would recommend doing that, especially if you're using lots of different designs, because then they can kind of blend together a little bit too much, and then the different designs aren't as visible. Does that make sense? Now, for my cover page, well, really this entire setup, it's very much trust the process. So I got out a bunch of my markers. I'm using both Tombow dual brush pens, Ohuhu markers, and also Marvy Uchida markers. They're all brush pens, like with a fine nib on one side and a brush nib on the other. And they're all water-based markers, of course, because alcohol-based markers will not be fun in a notebook like this. So my theme is frogs and cherry blossoms, so I just sketched out a little frog and decided to just draw a bunch of cherry blossoms around it. And one thing that is maybe a little bit different than what I would normally do here is that I am not using black. I would normally do the line art with a black fine liner first and then go in with the color, but I was really worried about smudging. I didn't want any of the color to be like, I didn't want any of the black fine liner to smudge because that will just muddy the colors, and especially when working with these light pink colors, I just didn't want any black making it look gray. So that's why I did the lines with the fine tips of like the darker shades of pink and green. It looks fine at one point, but then especially with the frog, the greens were a little bit darker and so I couldn't really see the lines anymore. So I did go over with a black fine liner in the end for the frog to just define the lines a little bit more, so that it wasn't just a green blob. And then with the cherry blossoms, I used a pink, like a darker pink pen later to go over the petals, and I used an Archer and Olive calligraph in like a dark yellow, ochre yellow, for the middle part of the flowers. And then I actually did the entire setup before realizing that I could do a lot more, like I could add a lot more details. For example, I was reminded that I have a bunch of glitter pens from Ohuhu and those worked great for this. So I do some final touches at the end. So just keep in mind that when I move on to the next spread, I'm actually not finished because I go back and just add a little bit of details here and there. As you can see with the frog, I'm using 3 different shades of green, and I started with the darkest shade to do kind of the shadows, and then I went in with my middle shade, which is kind of the main color of the frog, and then at the end I have left space for the highlights, and then with the lightest shade of green, I go over the entire frog to kind of blend the colors as best as I can. I still struggle a lot with blending water-based colors, especially without using actual water to blend the colors, because that is an option. You can do that with water-based markers. Have a little bit of water on a brush or something and just kind of blend it with that. But I didn't want to do that because the pages, I don't know, I don't think the paper would deal very well with that. Not that I've tried, so I could be wrong, but it just doesn't feel that way. Because even with like 3 layers of marker, it was visible on the other side of the paper some places, so yeah, I didn't want to risk it. Guys, I'm sorry for the low energy. It's just my brain isn't working the way it's supposed to. Okay, so I added some details with this Crayola marker. I actually love the Crayola markers, and these are the like colors of the world set. I have both the thin and the thick ones, and I love them, and I use them a lot in the setup because there are a lot of very subtle pink shades, so they're really nice. I feel like the drawing was coming together more when adding the more defined line art, both on the flowers and on the frog. So I'm really happy that I went with the black on the frog. I didn't have any darker shade of green that I could use. I have a lot of green markers and pens, but they're all lighter or they were too blue. And I definitely didn't want to add any blue. I wanted the greens to be as yellow as possible because to me that's kind of the frog image I had in my mind. And then I added details to the flowers with this Clickart pink pen. I only have this pen in like 2 colors, green and pink actually, that I got in Japan a couple of years ago, and the pink was perfect for this. When I was starting out drawing the flowers, I wanted to use like different colors for the line art because I wanted the petals to be like some darker and some lighter. So some of the flowers are colored in with the Crayola markers and some with a mix of Ohuhu and Tombow. But in the end, when I was adding the details, like the lines here with this Clickart pen, I just did the same color for all of them because it was a lot easier. And I just didn't want to make my life harder than it already was because I was not feeling my best. Another little detail that I did that you might have seen me do years ago is adding these squiggly thin black lines around my design, or like around my drawing. And I think that this was a nice little touch. It's not super visible, so it's not like really in your face, but it's just a little cute detail that I really like. And then for my April title, I glued in one of the titles in my printables that I made for my patrons, and I chose the green one so that there wouldn't be just too much pink blending together. So that's it for the cover page. Well, for now. I do go back later with the glitter pens like I mentioned before, but here is the calendar spread. Because of the waterfall tabs, I didn't have that much room on the spread, but I felt like it would be just perfect for the calendar, and usually I do cover page then calendar anyway, so that just made the most sense. And it's not like perfectly centered. I have 4 days on the right side and then 3 on the left, which I think worked the best. And then to kind of make it feel a little bit more, not symmetrical, but like that edge with the cherry blossom washi tape, it looks a little bit strange on the back side because obviously there are no cherry blossoms there, so it's just a squiggly edge. So I decided to use the green washi tape and just put it over there and cut it out the same way. And then I added a second strip, so now it's just like a pattern on the edge and it's the same on both sides, and I felt like that looked nicer than not having anything on the edge at all. And then because I wanted to use my own printables and I still wanted to do some collaging, I went for more of a collage design on this spread, and I just put together some, like one of the girls, some flowers, a frog, and just kind of fit them where I could fit them. I put down this thinner strip of washi tape that is also from Notebook Therapy, but it's from I think last year's or the year before Sakura collection, because they do one every year, and it's like this long branch with the cherry blossoms, and it did fill up that kind of empty space quite well. I didn't want to overdo it, but I also didn't want to leave too much white space, and it was a little bit tricky because the spread is such an awkward size. You know, it's almost like a traveler's notebook all over again. So I was struggling a little bit with how to, like, where to place everything, but in the end I think that it worked out quite well. I got this kind of border along the left side with the girl and the flowers, and then was able to fill up this white space at the bottom with the frog and some flowers. And I tried to use a mix of the pink and the white flowers because that way I think it adds a little bit more dimension to the spread. If you've been keeping up with my other videos, I just moved into an office, like an actual art studio / office, and there is a printer there in the like common area, and I use that to print my printables this month to see how they would look and everything. I always try to do a test print to see if the sizes work and stuff, and I love how the colors turn out. I think that they look so nice, and the paper is also really nice. It's just regular printer paper, but yeah, it worked really well. It's like one of those big industrial kind of office printers. But one thing that I didn't like is that there seems to be maybe some yellow ink on the run in there. So there are these like streaks of yellow on all the pages, so that was a bit of a downer, and I couldn't really figure out where to or like any settings for where I could clean the ink heads, which is what I would do on my own printer, but that is a very different printer, so hopefully someone else will do it and I can just use the printer. It's not too noticeable though, especially when I've cut out the individual stickers. It's just very visible on some of the wider parts, like the dress on the girl. You can see that there is a little bit of yellow there, but it's not too noticeable. At the top of the calendar, I wanted to have the days, And instead of just writing them or using stamps, I used these rub-on stickers from Notebook Therapy. These were part of their Hinoki Into the Song set from, was it last year? And I haven't used them until now, despite really loving rub-on stickers. I think that it's such a fun thing to use in your journal because it doesn't look like a sticker. It looks like it's just there. It's like magic. So I usually just cut them out and then I use the back of my tweezers to rub them onto the paper. And then if you've done a good job with the rubbing, then the plastic will just come right off and it looks really nice. But of course I did have this slightly awkward space here at the top that I had to fill with something. So I got out these stickers that are also from Notebook Therapy. I feel like I'm saying Notebook Therapy a lot, but these stickers are part of their Sakura Friends sticker pack from this year. I'm pretty sure these are still available, and they are these clear pet stickers with gold details, and I think that they were perfect for this space. And then all that was left to do was to add the days of the month. And I called it good at this point, but I did go back and add some more details at the end. So stay tuned for the end of the video. The third spread that I'm setting up is going to be my habit tracker and my task list for April. On the left side, I'm going to have just a very simple task list, and then on the right side here you can see me making 6 small little calendars for April, and this is where I will be tracking habits that I want to track in April. I usually track the same things every month, change it up maybe a little bit depending on what I have planned for the month, or if I know that something specific is happening, or if there is something specific I want to work on for that particular month. But for the most part, it's the same things, like don't buy too many coffees out, make it at home instead, or like go to the gym often. It's not a very fun page, but it does help me, so just making chores a little bit more fun by making a pretty spread that I can fill with pretty colors. You just gotta trick yourself into being productive, I guess. And since I used a lot of printables on my calendar spread, I decided to draw more on this spread. So I managed to fit a frog in here at the bottom and lots of cherry blossoms, and I tried to make it look like there was a branch going out to the left side of the spread. Even though I learned from my, I don't want to say mistakes, but what I did on the cover page, I still decided to do the same thing again, just because that way it will look the most similar. So I just went in with the same technique again with the colored like the fine tips of the brush pens and the same colors and everything, and just pretty much did the very same thing as I did on the cover page. So maybe it took me a little bit longer than it would have if I had just gone in with the quote-unquote correct fine liner colors right away, but I think this way just looks cohesive, so I'm happy with it. And you can see here my technique, I guess, with the flowers was to use a darker shade on the inside of the flower petals and then go over everything with a lighter shade, and that way it's kind of blended a little bit, but you still get a little bit of dimension, which is exactly what I was looking for. Also, here in this close-up you can really see that pretty grid that is in my notebook, and it's beige rather than gray, so it has a very warm feel to it, which I really like. And I know that's maybe not for everyone, and some would probably prefer a more gray grid or more on the black side than the brown side, but personally I really like the beige. One thing that I always have to think about when I do stuff like this, like draw directly into my notebook, and I know a lot of you guys struggle with this as well, is that little voice in your head telling you that it has to look perfect or otherwise you will hate it. That little perfectionism, or that feeling of not liking what you've made unless it looks exactly like you envisioned in your head or exactly like a picture you saw online. And I definitely have that as well, but I've learned to, I guess, work against it or fight it. And obviously this footage is sped up a lot, so you can't really see how fast or how slow I'm going in real time. But I did not take that much time to do these drawings. I decided to do like a quick, simple sketch and then just go with it. It was a little bit easier knowing that I didn't have to have this perfect line art because the colors would be kind of blended anyway. And so that way I could be a little bit sloppy without it looking weird. Does that make sense? So when I'm coloring in the petals, I'm not being super thorough. Like I'm covering most of the flower, but I'm not being super strict to not go outside the lines or like coloring everything in perfectly. And because I went in with this mindset that it's not supposed to be perfect, it's not as scary when something's not as nice as I maybe would have preferred to. Like with the frogs, for example, I had hoped that they would not be as dark because it's very hard to tell how a marker will dry, especially when working with like several layers and stuff like this. And I had done kind of a more like a test, I guess, a test drawing in another notebook, but I had used my alcohol markers because I left those at home. They're not in the office, and I was just playing around with them at home the night before, and the colors turn out a lot better in that drawing, obviously, because they're alcohol markers, so they're going to blend a lot nicer. And I also had a lot more greens to work with, so it was a lot easier to make it look exactly how I wanted it to look in my head. However, I think the flowers turned out nicer with the water-based markers than with the alcohol-based markers. So I was drawing this frog and the cherry blossoms, kind of like what I did on the cover page, using the alcohol markers, and I was sitting there thinking, it's not exactly how I envisioned it would look. Like the frog looks nice, the flowers, there's something missing, and I didn't feel that way when I did it in the notebook. Now obviously I did add a bit more details, especially like with the glitter pens and stuff at the end, but even so, I found that very interesting. I'm not sure where I'm going with this. You're basically getting a stream of consciousness voiceover today because that's all my brain can do at the moment. Oh, one thing that I can mention, kind of like a tip, I guess, or just telling you how I did it, is that especially with this spread, you can see that I move back and forth between the different pieces quite a lot. So I do like one color and then move on to the other side of the spread and do the color there. And that is because I wanted to give all of the markers a chance to dry properly so that I could avoid as much smudging as possible. Because if, for example, for the center of the flowers, the yellow, if I had done the extra line art with the calligraph right after coloring in the yellow, that would just muddy the lines and I wouldn't get that crisp line that I want from the line art. So that's why I'm also doing the details with the pink Clickart pen at the very end, just to make sure that it will be an actual line and not just be like smudged, because that's not the look I'm going for. Here as well, I went with the little squiggly black fine liner at the end, and I decided to also do the parts around the little calendars, just add a little bit of extra details. And then I remember that I hadn't done it on my calendar spread, so I did go back later to add these lines to the calendar spread as well, because even though I did a collage, I felt like I could still add this little detail to make it more cohesive. And it does give it a very cartoony, doodly look, which is pretty much what my style of drawing is these days. So it just worked really well. And I think it makes it maybe a little bit more whimsical, which again, I think fits the cherry blossom and frogs theme. So yeah. For the titles, I actually made these in Illustrator and printed them out. So they are the same style, like the same font as the rest of my printables. But these particular titles were not in the printable journaling kit. This is just something that I realized that I personally needed when I was setting up these spreads. But I did make a couple of sheets with just alphabet stickers, so just each individual letter, and so I think it would be easy to make the titles with those if you wanted to. If you're a patron and you have access to the journaling kit, that's something you could consider doing. So that is it for my tasks and habits spread for April. So now we can move on to the next spread, which is going to be my first weekly spread of April. And what's going to be interesting about my weekly spreads this month is that they will all be slightly different in size. So this first one will be the smallest one, and then they'll just kind of get bigger as we go. And one thing that I did mess up actually, and you might be able to tell already here looking at the waterfall tabs, is that I should have made one more tab. Like the cover page should have been slightly smaller, and I should have started one page further back in the journal, because the last weekly spread will be behind the final waterfall tab. Does that make sense? I actually only have 3 spreads left here, so that's something that I messed up, and it's easy to mess up when you have to count all these pages and figure out where the tabs will go, and it's not an easy job. A lot of counting, and apparently wrong counting on my part, but I blame that I'm sick. Just like on the calendar spread, I added a washi tape on the back side of the tab just to make it a little bit more symmetrical. So this way we have the same pattern on both sides. And then for this weekly spread, I wanted to use more of my own stickers, specifically this boy sticker that I really like. He's got a Mobu tote bag, and if you don't know the lore, Mobu is short for mochibujo, and it is the name of like any shop or brand that you will see in my drawings. They're a coffee shop, it's called Mobu Coffee. If it's art supplies, it's Mobu. Just anything will be Mobu. And it's just a fun way to add a little bit of me and a little bit of mochibujo into my drawings. And whenever I do tote bags, I always put Mobu on them. Should I make Mobu tote bags? Would that be fun? Or are they a little bit too boring, you know? I keep getting emails from different manufacturers, like these merch people, asking me if I want to make merch. And I always tell them no, because what kind of merch would I be making? Like, what's the point of mochibujo merch? I would rather just sell my art, you know? That's what I like. But maybe a tote bag, a Mobu tote bag. Who knows? I kept this weekly spread super simple. I'm just doing these bubble letter titles for each day. And you might notice already that there is a pretty big mistake happening as we speak. For some reason, I just called Sunday Saturday. There we go. Saturday twice. And I didn't even notice at first. I was doing other things, and then I was looking at the spread and I was like, this isn't right. So you can see I'm like adding details. I'm just moving on with the spread. And then what happened? It was easy to fix though. I just cut out some paper from the back of the notebook. The thing about these notebooks from Lila Journals is that the back pages, I don't know how many, 10 or so, are perforated, so you can easily rip them out. So I just cut out a piece from the back and cut it to the shape that I needed, glued it on top, and then I could write Sunday on top of it. Now obviously it's not perfect, and I will always, see that extra piece of paper, but I did manage to line it up with the grid pretty well, and that is a better solution than having 2 Saturdays in a row. 2 Saturdays in a row would be great, but I would still want the Sunday, So, it's not a big deal. I fixed the problem. I really like the little date, like the number stickers that I used here. These are from my own printable journaling kit. They were a bit of a pain to cut out, but I do really like the look because I use a lot of circle number stickers in my journal, and sometimes it's fun to switch it up a little little bit, and the flower shape goes really well with the overall theme, and using both the pink and the green just was a nice pop of color. And it also meant that I didn't feel like I needed to color in the bubble letters. I just kept them white, and I felt like that worked pretty well. For the top half of the left side of the spread, I wanted to do a little task list specifically for this week. So I just made a little collage title thingy here. I used one of the this week stickers, like label stickers from my journaling kit, and this way it's like this small, not so in your face title, and the title is kind of part of the decoration, which I think is really cute. Look, another mistake. I was gonna highlight every other line because I do this a lot when I make lists. I think that it looks nice. For some reason, I just went for it without really thinking, and I guess again this is my sick brain not really being 100% there. But listen up, I promised glitter pens, and here they are. I made little sparkles with a green and a pink glitter pen. These are from Ohuhu. I smudged them, of course, because I can't use glitter pens without smudging them all over. I did have to take extra care to not smudge everything, so I had to take the time to let it dry properly before flipping over the page to the other side, because otherwise there would just be blobs of glitter everywhere, and that would be very sad. Now that I'm looking at the spread, I can also see that I didn't add the squiggly lines to the flowers behind the task header. The interesting choice from me. I will just have to go do that now, I suppose. I used a green glitter pen to add some details to the frog, and because it is green and the frog is green, you can't really tell unless the light is hitting the page at the right angle, or when I'm flipping the page you can see it quite well. And I think that is a fun detail, because then it's quite subtle, but it's there. I also did some lines on the flowers with the glitter pen, just added a few details here and there. I didn't go over the entire flower, all of the line art with the glitter pen, just a little bit here and there for some subtle details. And I think that turned out quite nice, and it looks really nice when looking at it at an angle. I think it's just a little bit hard to show it on camera, So like I mentioned earlier, I wanted to do the little squiggly lines on my calendar spread as well to make it cohesive and similar to the other spreads. I'm looking at it now and I'm thinking, wow, there's a lot going on in this spread, but I do really like it. And I think that with the cherry blossoms, and this is, if you've been watching my cherry blossom themes last year, the year before, probably the year before that, I do tend to go overboard a bit with the cherry blossom themes. It's just something about cherry blossoms that makes me just want to put everything on the spreads, just make it more cherry blossom, more pink, more everything. And I also do have a lot of cherry blossom themed stationery, and I want to use all of it every time because it's just so pretty. And speaking of pretty things, I have a Discord server for my patrons, and every month we like to share our spreads with each other. And because I uploaded my printables to Patreon over a week ago, actually, they've all had time to set up their spreads before me, which I actually think is really fun, because then I get to see everyone's creativity and how they interpret the theme. And I wanted to show you guys some of the pictures that they've sent in, because they're all so different and so creative, using printables from both this month and also previous years and previous months. This cover page is by Honor Marie. I think it's so cute with the little frames. This one is by Sirja, and she made such a cute collage on the right side of the spread. And this gorgeous traveler's notebook setup is by Katrina. I think this is so cool, and how funny that we all used the green title, the green April title. This pretty setup is by Kirsi, and I did get inspired by Kirsi to do the waterfall tab, so thank you for that idea. And lastly, this pretty setup by Blonid. This is an honorable mention because it's not cherry blossom themed, but Blonid used my advent calendar and Year of the Snake stickers for her April setup, and I think the blue with April with spring is just, oh, it's perfect. My favorite part about having a Patreon and having this community with you guys is that we're able to share our creativity and inspire each other. It's not a one-way street. It's not like I'm just putting out content that is being consumed. It's more like a group project where we can inspire each other, and it goes back and forth in a circle, if that makes sense. And I really appreciate that, and I think it's such a beautiful thing. And with that, the setup is complete. I love this theme so much. Just green and pink, you guys know, it's my latest obsession, my favorite color combination at the moment. It is the third time in less than half a year that I've done green and pink as my color combo, but I love it so much. So let's do a little flip through of all of the spreads, get a little closer look at everything. And while we do that, I just want to thank you all so much for watching this video, especially this one, which is a little bit longer than my other Plan With Me videos have been lately. If you have watched this video all the way to the end, be sure to put a frog emoji in your comment. Any kind of frog emoji will do. It will let me know that you watched the whole video. Be sure to click the like button if you haven't already, and if you want to see more videos like this from me, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I've put links to all of my other social media in the description box below, including my Patreon if you want to check that out. It is a really fun place, I promise. April is going to be a very fun and exciting month for me, and it does seem like spring has finally come to Oslo, because we have a few days coming up with like more than 10 degrees Celsius, and I'm just very excited about that. So yeah, I have so much positive energy right now coming from April, and I just need to get over this cold, and then everything will be great. So thank you guys for being so awesome, for watching this video, and for being super creative and talented. You're all really great. I really hope that we're all gonna have an amazing April. I hope that you're all having a lovely day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!